Alright everyone, welcome back to the channel. With the Vintage Cube 64-player tournaments returning to Vintage Cube, I thought I would do some theory videos instead of gameplay videos about Vintage Cube. And these videos are going to be about which cards are worth splashing for in the different colors of Vintage Cube. So, in Vintage Cube, we have original duels, we have fetches, we have triumphs, we have creature lands, we have fast lands, we have a bunch of stuff. So that's like our means to splash these cards. We want to play as few basics of, our non-main color slash colors as possible. So I'm not advocating for, playing like 3 swamps and Dark Confidant in your deck, right? So this is going to be a video about where these cards fit, what kind of circumstances you need, and I'll also go into a little bit like how many sources of mana do you need to actually support those splashes. So I'm going to do this 2 colors at the time, and blue and black are off the bat. So let's go into the more obvious ones. We have Ancestral Recall and Time Walk. So this is based on power level alone. And even while you're drafting, let's say you're drafting red-green or black-white, it can be worth speculating on, let's say, a white-blue duel or some triumph that fits your deck and has blue in it. Simply because if you open or get past Ancestral Recall or Time Walk, you can slot them into your deck. So speculating on fixing is something that is oftentimes better than taking a medium card for your deck, which, like, this list is pretty darn huge. And also when we get to the other colors, you'll kind of see that a lot of cards are worth splashing for. So Ancestral Recall and Time Walk, that's for power level alone. And then let's take these blue cards one at a time. So Spellseeker, 3 mana 1/1. When it enters the battlefield, you may search your library for an instant or sorcery card with mana value 2 or less. So obviously this card is absurd with Ancestral Recall or Time Walk, but I don't really count that as like my splash thing. So Spellseeker would be worth it, let's say, in a white deck with a Sword of Plowshares and a 4th Theolingus. In a green deck with, I don't know, Channel and Pest Infestation. In a black deck with Mind Twist and Entomb. You see what I mean? So Spellseeker is basically a card that tries to double your amount of most broken things to do. So yeah, look out for Spellseeker. Frantic Search is a bit more specific. You basically would play this in, like, let's say, almost mono black Reanimator, and then like a tiny splash for Frantic Search, and I don't know, 1 more blue card or something along those lines. Kind of niche, but worth keeping an eye out for. Then we have Forensic Gadgeteer. This is infinite with Basalt Monolith. So this would basically in like some Serta, maybe not a Serta deck per se, but like a deck that's looking to go infinite with the monoliths, but we're not blue, but maybe we take some blue fixing because cards like the next card here, the card like Tinker, card like Gadgeteer would fit into that deck. Pretty niche, but worth thinking about. So Tinker is a weird one because let's say I play mono white aggro, but I have like some cheap artifacts like a Mox, a Skull Clamp, Esper Sentinel, Thraben Inspector, the clue token off of that. Then all of a sudden Tinker starts being interesting. Let's say I can pick up Tinker, Portal to Phyrexia, a little bit of blue fixing. Then all of a sudden you can just slot Tinker into a deck that didn't look like a Tinker deck. So yeah, worth thinking about. And we have Flash. So Flash is a weird one because Flash is usually very good in Reanimator, where you can go for the double whammy of flashing something crazy into play, like Traxa or whatever, and then reanimate it later. So yeah, I would say like black, mono black / black, red Reanimator / Flash is where I've splashed this card the most. Also out of green decks, if you have like Natural Order for Whirlspine Worm or Woodfall Primus, then all of a sudden Flash is a card that makes those cards decent draws as well. Pretty decent. Then there's Mystical Tutor, which is, it's kind of rare that you splash this tutor because usually your combo decks will have blue to begin with. But this is also like, let's say you have some kind of Boros deck and you randomly have some blue fixing and you have a 4th Theolingus, then all of a sudden you have 2 4th Theolingus in your deck. Yeah, that's definitely worth. And of course the mono black Reanimator stuff. Spelljacker is a cool one. I would generally advise playing this in your green X deck if you have enough fixing. The cool thing about green is you have Birds of Paradise, you have Sylvan Caryatid, you have the 2/1 hexproof creature, you have a little bit of, I guess Lotus Cobra doesn't really count unless you have a fetch land. But you can splash this in like your green big mana decks. Pretty cool card. I really like it. It can really turn the game over. Then we have Time Twister here. Usually this card you want to play that alongside the like anti-draw cards. And most of those are blue, but there's also Orcish Bowmasters and Leovold, I think, is still in the cube. Not 100% sure. But let's just take Bowmasters as a good example. Yeah, I'll play like a 2-color black deck. If I have a Time Twister, I'll try and play it alongside my Bowmasters. So yeah, Time Twister is cool. I wouldn't play Time Twister in any deck. You can also play Time Twister in like a green deck, fast bond deck. So yeah, cool splash card. Hull Breacher, I would actually play in any deck that can support it, to be honest. You can almost like put it over here because it doesn't really matter about the circumstances. This card is just solid, and if you go through the list, Hull Breacher is active against more than 10% of all cards. The last time I checked, which is more than you would imagine. Like, no matter what color you're up against, there are some stuff, whether it's still in library or clue tokens out of whatever, or Glimmer Lens or whatever the case may be. Hull Breacher is just super solid, and people like to, play draw 7s in cube, so it goes a little bit up because of that fact. Then in the end, we have all the 2-mana counters, which aren't crazy good splashes, but they're just super solid out of your green ramp deck or, white aggro deck, red aggro deck. If you can like put some stuff on the board, then these cards turn into counter spells, and all of a sudden you're winning the game. So this is not like super powerful, but I've had like white decks, then I pick up a Colonnade, then I pick up a Tundra, then I pick up a Fetch Land, and all of a sudden just putting Remand or Mana Leak in my deck is incredibly solid. So keep an eye out for that, for those for sure. So that'll do it for the mono blue cards. Let's go into the mono black cards. So first of all, we have the tutors here, with the obviously demonic being the best, then vampiric, then imperial seal, but they all kind of do the same thing. It's basically like if you have a flash in your deck, if you have ancestral recall in your deck, if you have tinker in your deck, if you have entomb, I guess that doesn't really count since we're talking splashing here. If you have like some underworld breach, brain freeze stuff, these tutors will be worth it simply for the consistency of putting together your combo. So let's say I'm drafting a red-blue combo deck, picking up a little bit of black fixing here and there in case I find one of these tutors or one of the more generically good cards like Orcish Bowmasters, I would say is well worth it. Let's say I'm playing some aggressive decks, then maybe these tutors aren't the best, but in these combination decks, yeah, pretty darn strong. Then I have a card like Animate Dead and Reanimate. So these cards are just solid cards overall. Obviously, they're great hate cards against Reanimator strategies, but if you have a mono red aggressive deck where you just red was super open, so you could even pick up red black fixing while just drafting an assertive deck, these cards are pretty darn strong. Clearing your opponent's blockers, bringing them back. If your opponent kills your own good creatures, you can bring those cards back. Reanimate being better than Animate Dead, of course. Animate Dead is also solid, but since the -1 in power and being one more, costing one more than Reanimate, it's just, a worse version of the card, kind of like Demonic, Vampiric, Imperial Seal tier. Then we have a couple of cards here. Let's go for the Caustic Bronco and Dark Confidant. So these are mainly good splashes out of aggressive decks with low curves. That could be mono white, that could be mono red. So yeah, I've had my fair share of, almost mono red, but I have like a Badlands and a Fetch and a Land Cycler, maybe some Triome or Fast Land. And then I just play like a super solid 2-drop that needs to get killed, otherwise the game just spirals out of control. Then we have Toxic Deluge, which is an interesting one, with the cube being more and more, playing to the board focused as time passes on. A card like Toxic is better and better, so you could even play this out of your, I don't know, mono blue High Tide deck or Doomsday combo deck, or what can you play this out of? I mean, you can even sideboard it, I guess, in green decks where you can get on the board with bigger creatures than sweep your opponent. As a splash card, you need like 3 sources to support this card, I would say. Maybe you have it in sideboard, maybe you start it. Like, this card is just super solid against the average cube deck. Especially, let's say, out of blue decks where you have a bit of cards like Brainstorm, lures like Jace Rince Prodigy, stuff like that, where you can just bin it or shuffle it away if it's not good. But when it's good, it's really, really strong. Then we have Yawgmoth's Will, which is more of a like Isid card, I would say. So you can have some good shell, very spell heavy shell, maybe storm theme, and then Yawgmoth's Will is just gonna be awesome there off the splash. So yeah, picking up black fixing, very valuable. Mind Twist is an interesting one because this card used to be incredible first pick. These days, that's not the case, but I still like it in green decks, especially. So we can go like turn 3, Mind Twist for 3, turn 4, Mind Twist away the whole hand, stuff like that. I think is decent. And yeah, keep an eye out for like the interaction with Spellseeker, being able to get more expensive cards that like X spells mainly. And then we have like the two, let's say, weakest splashes here. We have Thoughtseize, and because it's a 1-drop and it's better the earlier you can cast it, I don't recommend playing this card from just 3 mana sources. So you would need like at least 4, but I would prefer 5 to play in your like it could be aggressive red, it could be white, could be any deck basically. I'll happily play a Thoughtseize. It's very good. A lot of cube decks are, they need all of their parts to do the broken things, and if you can break that up, you can buy a lot of time. So yeah, Thoughtseize is very strong. And then the very end, probably the weakest one, Bitter Triumph. The thing about this card is it's catch-all removal against walkers and creatures, which puts it over the top of something like, I don't know, Infernal Grasp, Fatal Push, etc. This card is nothing to write home about, but if you have like a free roll of 4 black sources, you can run this. But I think it's good to also have the kind of niche stuff like the 2 mana counters being splashed, or the universally good removal here, because sometimes that's what you got to do in order to like enable a high enough quality. Yeah, so I think that kind of does it for these 2 colors. Remember, you can like speculate on Triumphs. Triumphs are very good with fetches. You can even have like fetches that you didn't think would be good in your deck, but then all of a sudden a Triumph enables the fetch. The rule of thumb with fetches is I want 2 targets for the fetch. I don't want to run like a fetch line that is a dead card if I already drew my 1 Triumph, but I'm okay if I draw like the Triumph and the corresponding basic land and then draw the fetch. That's whatever. That's fine. I'm just gonna accept that variance. So yeah, I think this is kind of cool. I hope I remembered all of them. Let me know if I forgot something. I'm sure there are like corner cases where you can say, oh yeah, I remember this situation where splashing that card was cool because I had this and that land and I wanted this and that in my deck. So yeah, let me know how you like this kind of content. And next color pair will be up tomorrow. Thanks so much for watching.